We have another one of those situations where the politician accidentally says something that's true. We're seeing that this time with Kamala Harris. She recently, I don't know where she was talking. She was talking at some, I guess, Protect Chicago meeting or something like that. But once again, she says the quiet part out loud. So let's take a look at what she had to say.
And here's the other thing, because I also, I'm in a lot of meetings on foreign policy. For years and generations, wars have been fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water.
So my question to Kamala Harris is, who's been waging those wars? So we've now got to the point where the mainstream Democrats and Republicans, I guess, can admit that wars have been waged over oil, because before we were told that they were waged over weapons of mass destruction, or because there's some type of dictator who is, being so horrible to his citizens that we have to go over there and just bomb those same citizens that he's already being horrible to, because we have to save them. We have to save them. We have to be the world police. Well, now they've come to the point where they can just admit freely and openly that war, and they say wars have been waged over oil. We've waged a lot of those wars over the oil. So it's not just wars in general, but have been waged by some arbitrary entity. No. We as the United States have went out there and waged those wars for the oil revenue that comes out of it. Now, Trump famously, which is why the mainstream and establishment hated Trump, is he did this a lot and said the quiet part out loud. He would say, bomb the oil, take the oil. That's what I would do. I just bomb the oil, then I take it. Oh, we're there in Syria. We're there protecting the oil. And then everyone would come out and say, well, that's inhumane. That's, don't say that, Trump. You're exposing us for what we're actually have been doing for decades. Well, now we have Kamala Harris, who's the current VP, saying that wars have been waged over oil. Those wars waged by us. And now she's saying, because the wars will soon be waged for water, I guess we can admit now that the wars before were waged because of oil. And who's going to wage those wars over water, Kamala? Who's going to do it? Now, what I would suggest is we all come together as a humanity to stop and mitigate the effects of climate change that are happening, which would start with a boisterous, large infrastructure package that's an investment in that water, in the future of the infrastructure of our country, to ensure that at least at home, first and foremost, we won't have those water issues. But of course, Joe Biden is proposing some half measure, which won't even come close to the gravity of the crisis we're in. So my suggestion is that we actually work with everyone, other nations, to come together, stop the effects of climate change, and then invest in technology that's going to ensure that we have access to that water. What Kamala Harris is saying is we need to make sure that, because these wars will be waged over water, we need to make sure that we have that water, that we're good. Forget about the rest of the world. We need to make sure we're investing in our infrastructure, even though it's not sufficient investment, to make sure that we have water. Well, what I'm saying is let's make sure we have water, but let's also make sure that Haiti has water, that Mexico has water, that the Philippines has water. Let's just make sure everyone has water. And we can do that because we have the resources to actually invest in those technologies, to ensure that not only can we invest in that technology and make sure that it works and can ensure, that we have water here, but it can also ensure that other people in other places have water as well. And we can share that technology with them. We can share the IP behind it. We can share the manufacturing, that would help those smaller countries, poor countries, have that same access. But will she suggest that? Of course not. Of course she won't suggest that, because at the core of her heart, she's a capitalist, she's an imperialist. And that's what the entire United States establishment is. Both parties are imperialist parties. They will be waging those wars over water if necessary. But of course, none of that is necessary, because we could actually just come together as humanity and work together and actually ensure that everyone can live with access to that water. Now, of course, this probably won't happen because, it's not really in the culture of this country to actually give a shit about what happens in other countries. But I'm hoping we can change that. I'm hoping we can change that, because once climate change and the real effects start hitting, I mean, they're already hitting, with all, these extreme weather events, stuff that happened in Texas, this once in a generation type of winter storm, or, all these hurricanes that have happened, I mean, in Texas, Florida, New York, New Jersey, all these places. We're already seeing the effects of climate change. But once it really starts to ramp up and there's mass migrations because people, you just can't survive in some of these places that are going to be just too hot or too dry, then we're going to be looking back wishing that we actually did something to avoid the wars that Kamala Harris is talking about that's going to be happening pretty soon here in the future. So my advice and what I'm hoping for, and I hope we can all hope and push for, is that we actually give a shit about what happens in other countries as well and make sure that they have clean water too. And that starts with ending all the imperialist wars that we already are waging over that oil still to this day, and actually investing in technologies and in the human capital that's going to be needed to actually stave off something like wars for oil. But, I don't think that's in the Democratic Party platform or the Democratic Party ideology. It's definitely not in the Republican Party ideology. We know that. So will that happen? Probably not. But, we can one can hope and one can push for that. So yeah, here's just Kamala Harris blatantly admitting that we have waged wars for oil in the past, still are today, and we'll be waging wars in the future over water.